Hey, I'm all grown up. Joke aside, welcome to my video. So, in my previous video, I had some comments people saying I sound robotic. Now, the reason why is that is because I had a certain settings to use my microphone when I was using OBS. So what I did, I basically copied over my Gentoo home dot files or my home directory, my user name, and I basically copied it over to my Nix system. So it doesn't matter because it's the same computer, it's just on a different distribution, right? So like my dot files, all the configuration, everything, I can just transfer it to my other Linux system that I use. Because I use Gentoo as well. I don't just use NixOS, I use Gentoo. I stopped using Arch Linux. I don't hate Arch Linux. I still do use Arch Linux. I always will be because I use a Steam Deck and it has SteamOS, so it's based on Arch Linux. So I technically still use Arch Linux, but I use the SteamOS Arch Linux style system, which I like better than the OG Arch Linux, to be honest. But anyways, that has nothing to do with Arch. I have nothing against Arch. I just use Arch for a very long time, and I actually found a system that's a lot better than Arch Linux. One of them is Gentoo, and the other one is NixOS. Now, I like Gentoo for a lot of things because I like to have control over my software and all that stuff, like to maintain the whole system. It's a lot more work, but in the long run, you have a really good system and you have it set up just exactly the way you want it to be. And that's what makes Gentoo really nice. And I actually stick with Gentoo because I actually like Gentoo. I'm not going to wipe it off. I mean, I have another hard drive and I have Gentoo on it. I might as well just keep it on there. I copied Nix on another disk because I don't want to use FreeBSD anymore. And there's nothing to have anything against FreeBSD. I basically just rather use Gentoo over FreeBSD. Like when it comes to a BSD system, give me a second here. So Gentoo has a lot of inspiration of FreeBSD because of the developer Daniel Robin, or I think that's his name, Daniel Robin. Anyways, use FreeBSD, so a lot of it is like a lot of ideas and inspiration comes from FreeBSD, and that's why I like Gentoo because it shares a lot like BSD. But what's nice about Gentoo though, it has a much better package manager system compared to FreeBSD. As much as I like FreeBSD a lot, I find their package management is not good. I think they should just have ports and not have package, because if it's not going to be like, if the binary source ain't going to be like, same version of the software, then what's the point of it? Because the way I look at it, you see, like I like to use ports because I can do like what I can do with Gentoo is I can edit the source code and basically add what I need in the program and take out what I don't want in the program, like what you can do with Gentoo. And also NetBSD does the same thing. NetBSD has actually, with package source, it's kind of, you can see that it kind of takes a lot of inspiration from Gentoo in some regards, I consider. Another thing nice about Gentoo, you have a choice to choose an init system. You can choose OpenRC, or you can set it up with systemd. I set up my Gentoo with systemd. I should have set it up with OpenRC, to be honest. That's probably what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna set it up with OpenRC because I do use NixOS and that runs systemd. So like, I'd rather have another system. If I'm gonna have another Linux system, I want it to have a different init system as well. So I think I'm gonna reinstall my Gentoo and use it with how do you call it? Use it with OpenRC instead of systemd. And it doesn't take long to set it up because I use Cinnamon on Gentoo as well. So the desktop doesn't take much to compile compared to KDE and GNOME. So, well, GNOME's not too bad either. Actually, I can compile GNOME quite fast. But I want to redo Gentoo again. I actually like to set up Gentoo. I hate setting up Arch Linux manually, but for some reason I like to set up Gentoo manually. Don't understand why, but their handbook is nice. I find Gentoo has a really nice handbook. A lot better than Arch Linux, that's for sure. It's not like FreeBSD handbook, but it's pretty close to it. The documentation of Gentoo is really great. That's another reason I like Gentoo a lot as well. But I like Gentoo for a lot of reasons. But anyways, I'm using NixOS here on this system, and I like NixOS for a lot of other reasons as well. I like the immutability of the system, and I like that it's very stable. Even if you do go bleeding edge with the system, it's quite stable. What makes it really stable is because you can roll back if something fails as well, so you can test things a lot. It has NixShell, which is really cool. NixShell, you can run things in the sandbox sort of idea, or kind of like containers. So NixShell is kind of like jail on FreeBSD and zones on Open Solaris. The Sun Micro system. Sun Microsystem system. Yeah. Anyways, I know people complain about my videos, and I'm glad that you do, because that's the only way I'll get in better with my stuff. But I'm not really much of a YouTube content creator kind of person. I do videos. I talk about Linux because I like Linux, and I used to do a lot of videos in the past of Linux back in the day. But not so, like, I still use Linux hardcore, but I just don't really do much YouTube videos. And sometimes I don't always have the time to do it either. And I know I'm not professional, and I'm not professional. I'm a human being, like, so it's gonna. I forgot how to like change the colors of the. I don't know. Okay, that's what makes the levels bigger. Yeah, that's better that way. But how do you change the colors? Oh yeah, it'd be foreground. I think that looks cool. So, yeah. NixOS, I've been running it for a while now. I really like it. There are a lot of things I like about NixOS. Like, I like, like, it's easy to, maintain the system. Sorry. I'll open up another terminal. Oops. So it's easy to maintain the system. Like, you can just do, like, so you do nix, just do sudo, can't type, sudo nix channel --list. So I am on the NixOS unstable channel. So to update that, you just do an update. So this will update the channel. The channel is basically your repository. Okay. So that's updated. So if you want to clear your old snapshots, that's basically what they are. They're basically snapshots. You can clear them, and you can also free up space. Keep like it's kind of like --dep clean on Gentoo. Gentoo. You use emerge. So I do sudo nix -collect -garbage -d. So this will basically delete everything that's currently on the system. Okay. I'm eating cereal. I'm hungry. I also just finished work, so I've been wanting to redo this video because I get a lot of comments from people saying that my previous videos sound like robotic. And the reason why they sound robotic is because I had two inputs. So, like, at the beginning of the video, when I was talking about, I was like, I copied my dot file from Gentoo to my NixOS system. What happened is I had OBS set up for Gentoo to use my microphone because the audio is a little different. Like, I had to set it up differently. So when I put on NixOS, it was I enabled a microphone because there was none. Actually, I didn't see any, to be honest. But I didn't know that you could scroll down. I just didn't notice. So I added another input, and basically it was capturing two inputs, and I was recording that, So that's why it's not robotic, because my microphone was being recorded from two inputs instead of one. So yeah, I was basically layering on top the other voice. So that is why it's like that. But anyways, it's all sorted out now. So to reconfigure your configuration file after you're done, clean out your system, you basically do sudo space nixos dash rebuild switch dash upgrade. When I done the Nix channel dash update, it's the same idea when you do it with this command here with the dash upgrade. What it does is that it will update your channel, then it will rebuild your configuration file, your configuration.nix file. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. See, right now you see where it says unpacking one channels, which is NixOS unstable, and now it's going to regenerate my configuration file. This is my configuration file with all the applications. So when I reconfigure it, I'm basically updating the system to the latest packages, if there's any updates. It can do it automatically. I have it set up to actually update the system automatically. Like, I could just wait and it will update itself anyways. But I always do this because I like to have the latest of the latest. So I run it kind of like a roll and release. I mean, most people probably don't run Nix like this, but this is how I run my NixOS. Now everything's done. I'm not even sure if I got... Well, if I had a new kernel, it would have been updated automatically. So if I do... fast fetch. So this system is on the latest kernel, which is 6.15.8. It's not on the latest Cinnamon, but it is on Cinnamon 6.4, so it's not old. It's just that 6.4.10 is 0.7, so it's a little older. But really, I don't see any difference, to be honest. I'm using this in X11 because Cinnamon does not have like a stable session, I should say, and that is completely working fine in Wayland. It might take a while because it took a while for GNOME to actually work pretty decent. And KDE, well. KDE does work better than X11 in Wayland. I find KDE actually works really well in Wayland, a lot better than X11. But it still has its bugs, and it's not Wayland bugs, it's KDE bugs. Cinnamon, on the other hand, works really well on Xorg, but it probably will work good eventually on Wayland. I don't see that it would be much of a problem to transition to Wayland. Since you have a lot of like stuff already done in GNOME and Cinnamon, and it's really based off of GNOME. Same as Pantheon and Pantheon DE and Budgie and Unity, but okay, I went to go get my coffee, so took a little break there, and I'm just gonna pretty much finish this video. I don't want to make it too long. It's already long already. So yeah, I really do like NixOS a lot, though. I know I've been saying that for a while. It's a really good system. I didn't ditch NixOS. I kind of just went back on Arch Linux, but I realized that I don't know. I don't really like Arch Linux too much anymore. Especially the AUR. I don't want that on my system at all. I would not want an AUR helper at all on my system. If I'm using Arch Linux, it's strictly just Pac-Man or Flatpak. I would not even touch AUR. Personally, I know people are going to be all pissed at me saying that. Like, how dare you not like AUR? I never liked AUR. I never liked AUR even way back in the old school of Arch Linux. I just think AR is what makes Arch Linux very not reliable at all. And I also consider it very insecure. And yeah, I think you should keep AUR off your system as if you're using Arch Linux. I like NixOS because I like the immutability of the system, and it works really well. And I find it's quite secure in some regards because of the way the system is read only a lot. You can't really edit a lot of things because it's immutable system. So you can roll back the system. You know, it's just. I think NixOS is a really nice system because you can really push your limits with it. Like, you can test a lot of things, right? Like, to the core, man. And if you break something, you just roll back to like the previous good setup. And yeah, NixOS is a pretty cool system. I think a lot of developers and programmers I can see why they like NixOS a lot. I think it's also a very good development operating system. What's really cool about NixOS as well, they even have their own language, which is the Nix program language. And yeah, I probably give it a shot to learn it, maybe, if I have the, it's like I kind of lost touch with computers. Like, I don't have that passion like I used to. Like, I used to like to program. I used to be reading, like, especially with C language. When I was a kid, I used to play around with BASIC. I had a program book. It was QBasic programming, and what it was is like it was a book about games. So you have to program the games from BASIC. So you basically read the book. You like kind of just copy what the book has onto your edit.com file, and you make a basic a QBasic, which I think was BAS file, and you run it. And a lot with Linux, I like to use the C language, and I used to actually read the book of the C language and actually teaching myself programming in C. But after a while, I just sort of stopped doing that, and I really lost a lot of what I learned. Like I completely don't remember how to program in C anymore, but I used to like years ago. It's actually pretty good. Even with dialogue and shell scripting, I used to do a lot of that, like a lot of shell scripting. I was actually pretty good with shell scripting. I used to do a lot of that, like back in the day, man. Yeah, like shell scripting, it's not a level of programming, that's for sure. Um, but anyways, NixOS is a pretty cool system. So is Gentoo, but I actually know more about NixOS than I do about Gentoo. Because NixOS is pretty simple. You know what I mean? I like that about it, actually. I mean, you can get pretty tactical with NixOS. If you really want to get your hands dirty with NixOS, there is a lot, like Flakes, and there's Home Manager. You know, you can really tweak out your system to exactly the way you want it. But for me, I like just the out of box experience, like with any other distribution, like Gentoo, for example. I don't need to get technical with it. I just use what the system provides me to use. It has the tools. I use the tools. I know a lot of people don't like to do things manually all the time. I'm so used to doing that I actually prefer to do that. The reason why is because I like to have full control over my open source, system. You see, like, it's nice to have things automatically to do for you, but I don't want it to be like Windows. I want Linux to stay Linux. I want to do things manually. And I know a lot of people don't want to always do things manually because it's time consuming and they don't want to just waste their time. But when it comes for me to use NixOS, I want to tinker. And I'm going to tinker. And I've got to do everything manually. That's why I like to use Gentoo, because it's pretty much a manual system. There's no easy way in Gentoo. Gentoo is just Gentoo, and it's a lot to learn and a lot to maintain, and it's fun too at the same time. I think Gentoo is a fun system. I really like their package management. It's different. I'm not professional Gentoo, but I like Gentoo. I'm not bad at it. I mean, I'm just not putting much effort into learning more about it. I set up a system and I jump into NixOS because that's what I do. I distro hop a lot. I try to not do that, but to be honest, I like Linux so much. I like to play around with a lot of different distributions. There is a lot of cool distributions. Like I like what projects like. I like I like a lot of projects. I like over the years. Like I've been a big fan of Fedora for a long time. I used to like Canonical a long time ago. I used to use Ubuntu like a lot as my main operating system, especially in the early 2000s. I always thought, well, I didn't always use Ubuntu, but back in the day, Ubuntu was more like a Debian system. It was kind of like what the Debian edition of Linux Mint. Linux Mint DE, yeah, so it's LMDE of Linux Mint. Yeah, it reminds like that's basically how Ubuntu was, because Ubuntu was based off Debian, but things that were based off Debian were much like Debian. But Ubuntu over the years became its own Debian type system, right? Which is not a bad thing. If that's what they want to do, that's what they've been doing. That's fine. I'm not a big fan of Snap. I'll never like Snap. But if people like it, cool. But for me, I don't really need Ubuntu. I don't care about the pro stuff. I can see that, people that works in the IT and the servers and all that stuff, like, yeah, big companies, like server companies. Yeah, I can see benefit, like, them using Ubuntu or Debian system or what else would be? I could see NixOS be something like that. NixOS would be more like a IT style type distribution because it's so easy to set up on computers, and with the configuration file you can set up all the programs you want. You could actually make one configuration, like if you have a company and you have like a certain like software that you use, you can actually make a configuration file just to set up all your computers with that configuration file to use, and have like those software there and the desktop environment and everything. So I can see like NixOS be good for like IT style like jobs, and I think people do use, not all companies, but I'm sure some do, and use the program language of NixOS. And I think Nix is a really cool system. I really want to learn more about it. Same with Gentoo, and that's why these are the two systems I'm using right now, because I want to learn more about the system. Like Arch Linux, I know Arch Linux pretty well. I mean, like I know it like so I can set it up manually. I can set it up with install script. Arch Linux, just don't use AUR and you're fine. I think Arch Linux is okay, but it's not really my favorite system. So like I do like Arch, but it's, I don't know. I'm just not really much into Arch like I used to be. Since I started using NixOS, I sort of like Nix a lot better than Arch Linux. And the reason why I like NixOS a lot is because of their package management. It's a lot better than Arch Linux. You don't need any other, like, I like that their package is all just in one, kind of like Gentoo in a way. Like Gentoo is the same way, like it's all like under the same package, management program. Nix has you have a package manager with Nix. You can install individual programs automatically, like in the command line. You can do it automatically with your configuration file, or you can just add in your list and just redo your configuration file. That's what I do, because I just like to just reconfigure my configuration file. So if I need a program and I add it to the list, I'll just redo the configuration file, because why not? And yeah, it's really cool. I think NixOS is a very, very good distribution, and I also think people should try out Gentoo and give Gentoo a shot. I think Gentoo is a very, very, very good system. Anyways, I'm probably gonna go in my Gentoo system and basically back up the dot files, and I'm gonna redo my Gentoo and set it up with OpenRC, just because I want to have a system with a different init system. So yeah, I don't need to have two systems with systemd. I could have Gentoo with OpenRC, which feels more like Gentoo anyway. Gentoo has always been with OpenRC, so I think it'd be better than using systemd, as I can use systemd with NixOS. And I like that I have systemd boot as well with NixOS. So yeah, works really good. Great system. I think people should check out NixOS as well. Two good systems. I wouldn't be afraid to use them. Just read the handbook and you should be okay. Anyways, have a good one. Cheers.